The site is a very beautiful, unspoilt woodland in the green belt and is in the area of outstanding natural beauty. It is a place where local people and visitors go to enjoy the countryside. The restoration of the site following the development is thus crucial, and this will involve replanting trees and shrubs in order to restore the beauty of the site. The planning inspector stated in condition 14, and I quote, "All planting implemented pursuant to this permission shall be maintained in good, healthy condition and be protected from damage for 5 years from the completion of site restoration. During that period, any trees or shrubs which die or are severely damaged or diseased shall be replaced in the next available planting season with others of a similar size and species." And this is contained in paragraph 13 of the agenda paper at the end of the paragraph. It is very important for the landscape of the site to replant the trees and shrubs and ensure that they are maintained in good and healthy condition for the full 5 years, and that they are replaced if they are severely damaged, diseased, or die in the next planting season. I thus request that a condition is contained in the Landscape and Restoration Scheme, which is the same as the wording I've just read out, contained in the Planning Inspector's Condition 14. Also, there needs to be a programme included for restoration, monitoring and aftercare of the trees and shrubs. And it's also really important that the wording is such that it is enforceable against the applicant for the full 5 years post-restoration. So I appreciate if the committee could ensure that those points are taken on board. Many thank you. Many thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Samantha Murphy to introduce the report.
Thank you. This application is for the approval of Condition 14 of an appeal decision which was for an exploratory well site at land at Bury Hill Wood, south of Dorking and north of the village of Coldharbour. The planning history section of the officer report sets out the background which has led to the appeal decision for the application site. Condition 14 requires the submission of a landscape and restoration scheme. The applicant has submitted a document entitled Landscape and Biodiversity Management Scheme to meet the requirements of Condition 14. This document sets out the aims and objectives and the procedure for how the exploratory well site would be restored on cessation of operations. It should be noted that the application site falls within the Forestry Commission's Bury Hill Wood and Redlands Forestry Design Plan 2016, which sets out the planting regime for the Forestry Commission's land holding, which includes the application site. The scheme includes the following details, which are also followed in the discussion part of the officer's report. Information on how soils presently on the site would be stripped and stored in bunds at the application site, being careful to preserve the seed bank of the soils. This would include an area demarcated for any ancient woodland indicator species. All stripping and moving of soils would be in accordance with British standards. The scheme then sets out how soils would be placed back. Information on restoration, monitoring and aftercare activities for the site, in terms of restoring the site to a woodland aftercare, in terms of what activities would be carried out when and what this would involve, what the planting specification for the woodland being planted would be in terms of species and mix, how the access track to the application site from Coldharbour Lane would be reinstated, and this includes information on avoiding disturbance to Japanese knotweed and the measures for management of that invasive species. And finally, how elements that are to be used as part of groundwater monitoring would be taken account of. 27 letters of representation have been received, and their comments are documented in the report. Both Capel Parish Council and Leith Hill Action Group have raised concerns regarding guaranteeing the aftercare period is for 5 years, as stipulated by the inspector, and this matter is covered in paragraphs 74 to 77 of the officer's report. No technical objection has been received in relation to the details provided and within the submitted scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Thank you. I listened to the local councillor speak, drawn to condition 2, which talks about restoration, and replacement for 5 years. Is it possible to confirm whether that addresses the points raised by the local member? And a small textual amendment that I think in the document you refer to a landscape and biodiversity management scheme, but in the condition you refer to a landscape and biodiversity management plan, just to ensure that we're conditioning the document which they're giving us. And a minor question is there's discussion in the report about Japanese knotweed on site. It talks about trying to avoid it spreading elsewhere. CPRE have raised why don't we require it to be eradicated? But then I read on paragraph 88 that there's a commitment to spray the Japanese knotweed. Is that detailed that we keep spraying it until it's eradicated? Thanks.
Yes, so in answer to your first question, yes, condition 2 is to address the concerns raised about the monitoring and aftercare period for 5 years, and to address that point. And yes, we can change the wording from plan to scheme. Yes, Japanese knotweed, as you may know, takes quite a while to eradicate and quite a lot of work. And the applicant is committed to spraying the Japanese knotweed on following in the first available spraying season, following the decision being taken on this. So not when they actually commence, but once they get a decision on this, and then to keep spraying it whilst they're on the site and as part of the aftercare. So it wouldn't be in perpetuity to eradicate it, but they would do their responsibility while they're at the site.
They'll do it throughout the aftercare period, so it's part of the plan, scheme, or something.
Yes, that's correct.
Keith.
Really just almost for the future education of members. Am I not right in thinking that where a condition is on the main application is already in place, that is enforceable anyway, so repeating the wording of that application on details pursuant clearly doesn't do any harm as a belt and braces, but it isn't actually necessary. It will be perfectly possible for us to take enforcement action based on the original wording of condition 14. And is that correct?
Yes, the short answer.
Okay. So anyway, I'm not suggesting it's doing any harm, but for future reference, we don't actually need to repeat everything that's in the main application on every details pursuant.
Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, thank you very much. Just thinking carefully about what the Vice Chairman said. In the introduction, it does say the Inspector's report says the responsibility will lie with the applicant to the Forestry Commission. Any arrangement for replanting will be met between those two bodies, so it's not a matter for the County Council. Now, on condition 14 on page 118, which Mrs. Watson drew our attention to, reading through the details there of condition 14, it doesn't actually explicitly say whose responsibility that is. And likewise in condition 2 about the planting replacement, I've heard that you shouldn't be repeating things in the conditions, but I think it does help people understand who actually has responsibility for this. And to me that's a very grey area. To me it's not very clear actually who is exactly and specifically responsible to replace any trees that die within 5 years. And trees often die in that period because it's the time when the roots become established, and often some species will fail. So I would like that tightened up, please, because myself reading this, and I'm sure members of the public reading this, wouldn't be very clear exactly who is going to be responsible for replacing those specimens that die, and also who's going to be monitoring this during the 5 years. So could we please be a little more explicit in condition 2 as to who is responsible?
This point was brought up at the inquiry, and the Planning Commission, as you are aware, runs with the land, so it's whoever has responsibility for the land at that point in time. And because the site is part of the Forestry Commission's restoration, long-term woodland plan, whilst the applicant may initially have that responsibility for the aftercare, it may not have that responsibility for the full 5 years. It may then revert to the Forestry Commission because it's going to be part of their plan. So the inspector picked up that issue with that there wasn't a specific time when there'd be a handover.
Come back on that. I mean, I'm not altogether happy with that response because for the benefit of those who were not in the appeal process and actually attended the inquiry, and I think that's most people here, it's very loose, isn't it? You're saying it could be the Forestry Commission for some period of time, it could be the applicant, I'm not quite sure when it hands over. You know, there's too many ifs and buts here. I think for the benefit of people who are concerned about this important site, we need to be absolutely clear and not vague and woolly about it could be this, it could be somebody else in a year's time. Can we please nail this down and know exactly who is responsible?
It's a legal point, really. As Sam said, it runs with the land. I mean, Nancy may wish to add something to this, but if there is an enforceability point at any particular juncture, it would be whoever is responsible at that time, or managing the land at that particular time. And you take that as a given for any particular site. It will be quite an extremely difficult contrived arrangement to try and describe that through the process of applying a planning condition. You just rely on the legal point.
Well, can I come back and ask that could you have that wording put in point 2, please, that the responsibility lies with the landowner at the time? Because that's not at all clear from condition 2 as to who is responsible.
Nancy, if that makes sense from where you're sitting. I know what.
Yeah, I think Mr. Chairman, I think I'd like to have a discussion with the planners as to how that was done, because I don't think that's entirely straightforward. And we haven't had that discussion, so I don't know if the members want to leave it with the planners to finalise.
Surely, Chairman, the inference of that is we'd end up having to add wording of that kind to almost every condition, to almost every application. It's the principle of it going with the ownership of the land is so fundamental that it underpins everything on every application.
Well, a bit forward. Why can't we put it in condition 2? If it's that simple. Frankly, if it's causing confusion among professional planners, what is it going to do with members of the public? And this was a very contentious site. You bear in mind there was huge opposition to development of this site. So I think it needs to be clear for the layperson exactly who is going to be responsible. If it's the owners of the land, then why can't we just put it in condition 2?
Ernest, sorry.
I mean, this is a ridiculous suggestion, basically, because anybody, we're all responsible for the land that we own, whether it's our own house or what it is. When you don't own it, you're not responsible for it, and the next person is. So, I mean, it's quite clear under planning. I don't know where this point is really coming from, because anybody who's been on a planning committee or anything at all knows quite well that what happens automatically is and legally is planning conditions or anything to do with the land runs with the land. They don't run with the owner, they don't run with anybody else. So who is the owner of the land at the time, or the leaseholder of the land, who, if he's responsible under his lease, they are the people responsible. I don't think there's any lack of clarity on this at all. We don't want to start writing in the conditions things which are, legally the situation in any normal way.
Marissa.
Thank you, Chairman. Are we not just simply asking for the end of the sentence in condition 2 to say by the landowner, by the responsible landowner? Because it does, I do agree, I understand what you're saying, Ernest, but I also think here it says during the period any trees or shrubs which die or severely damaged will be replaced, but there's nothing here to say by whom.
I have to say I have some sympathy with your view that if the oil company moves on and what happens next, there is some sort of slight ambiguity in the wording, isn't there? Can we put that in?
It's quite loose wording, just the person responsible, the land, whatever.
I'm not sure whether we can say the landowner, because that would be the Forestry Commission and they wouldn't necessarily be the person responsible unless we have wording, and again may have to discuss this with Nancy, about the person who has control of the land at that point in time.
It doesn't have to be.
There is obviously a disagreement and an ambiguity of some sort. Do you have a view?
I suggest, Chairman, that we leave this in the hands of the officer. We understand the point, but equally well, I mean, it would be entirely contrary to what even those objections to this application would want if we muddied the wording in such a way as to make it unenforceable. So let's, for goodness sake, let's get a bit of legal advice and sort of, if we're going to put some non-standard wording in, let's at least make sure that that isn't actually going to make it more difficult to enforce.
I think that probably may be the way forward. I mean, to discuss this further and have a sensible conversation to see exactly the point you're making and why. Technically, it's not needed, but at the same time, in practical terms, it makes much more sense. I see exactly what you're saying. So, can I move the recommendation, basically that we will agree what we have, but we will also have a conversation about amending or altering the condition to actually make it as clear as it needs to be. All those in favour, please show. Right. It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll come back to you. Item 9, land at Watersplash Farm.